honorable teachers, students, friends, Assalamu alaikum. It is a small gathering, but quality rather than quantity matters. If you are at the same wavelength and if you are able to communicate, that is the important thing. Before I come to the topic of this meeting, the organizers want me to talk about the practical aspects of the legal profession. That is to say, once you have qualified, how to cope with the problems after the entry into the legal profession. First of all, your grounding as a student should be very strong. It is not just the degree that you should be carrying, but the knowledge behind that degree that should be with you. I can say so because I am a local product. I never went abroad for further education. I simply graduated from SM Law School. I was never a brilliant student, but because I worked very hard in law, so somehow I got a position in my last year of education, that is LLB, from the University of Karachi. Because of that hard work, when I entered the legal profession, I practically knew everything that was going on in courts. In fact, many lawyers would ask me, from where have you qualified? From which university in UK or elsewhere have you come? I said, I am a local product. In fact, when I did my matric, my father, Justice Wahiduddin Ahmed, who was at the bar at that time, he said, you can go and do your bar in England. I said, अब्बा क्या होता है, वहाँ अगर मैंने गया और बार किया तो वहाँ क्या मिलेगा मुझे जो यहाँ नहीं मिल सकता? He said, you will learn a bit more of English, you will learn a few mannerisms. I said, if that is all, I can do it here. Why go abroad? And I did that. Now, first of all, you must strengthen your knowledge of law. And knowledge of law is not just knowledge of law. It is also knowledge of the domestic affairs of the country, knowledge of the international affairs in the situation in which we are, So you have got to have open eyes and open ears all the time. Once you have qualified, that is the starting point where you will either make or destroy yourself. Sometimes people think that with a good bit of knowledge and credentials, they will be able to establish themselves as competent and successful lawyers on their own by engaging on a solo flight. That is not so. It can't happen. So therefore, even when you are here, you have to be on the lookout to join a firm where you have a senior or seniors from whom you can learn. They are not going to spoon feed you. They are not going to teach you everything. You have to be there and you have to see what they are doing, how they are preparing their cases, how they are conducting those cases in court. And once you have such a person in whose office you happen to be, you learn things on your own. So that is very important. The first and foremost thing for a law student, once he or she launches himself or herself in the legal profession, is to join a good, competent lawyer or a firm of lawyers. That is the first essential. Now, once you have done that, maybe for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, I myself spent 6 months with my uncle, Mr. Muhammad Shafi Sheikh, who was president of the bar, and I spent about 6 months with Mr. Noor Arifin, later on Justice Noor Arifin. So I spent about a year in learning, and that was very helpful to me. But for you, maybe 2 years may be necessary, maybe 3 years maybe, and these lawyers don't pay you anything. If you join a senior lawyer, don't expect a penny. Justice Noor Arifin, when I was there with him, he gave me an envelope. And he said, "This is for your conveyance." I don't know what was there inside. I said, "Sir, I can manage my conveyance." I didn't take that money. For all those 6 months, I never received anything, nor was I offered anything. So that is what will happen to you initially. But once you have attained a footing at the bar, the next question would be whether you establish an office of your own. In my days, it was possible. Nowadays, for an individual to establish an office of his own is a very difficult job. It takes a lot of money. You can't do it. So therefore, you should be on the lookout for associates who can contribute, and maybe a firm of 3 people, 4 people, 5 people of equal or varying experiences can work out things better. This is how a young lawyer should think, and this is what a young lawyer should be prepared for. Now, coming to the subject at hand, lawyers these days do not enjoy the respect that they once used to. I saw my father, as I said, Justice Waiduddin Ahmad. The amount of respect that he used to get, these days even judges don't get that amount of respect. Why? Because a lawyer is supposed to be a gentleman. if he makes a statement at the bar and says, Your Honor, this is my statement at the bar, or my Lord, this is my statement at the bar, that is never questioned. That is weightier than all kinds of evidence, because it is assumed, it is presumed that you will not be lying. So that is the kind of person that you should be. And now, you see, the legal profession has roots. Going back to England, it was only the gentry from whom the legal profession used to be manned. And they were highly respectable people. And they were never bothered about money. In fact, if you have seen the gown that barristers used to wear, I suppose you should be knowing what kind of gowns they wear now. But there used to be a pocket at the back. In the gown, there used to be a pocket at the back. Because you are not supposed to pay the lawyer anything by way of a hand-to-hand exchange. If you have to give anything to him, you have to put the money in that back pocket. Now, of course, barristers don't receive any money directly. It is the solicitors in England who are engaged and who in turn engage barristers, who settle the fees of the barristers, and that is how the system works now. So money has never mattered insofar as the initial evolution of the legal profession is concerned. Of course, in these times, we can't expect that. You will be in the profession, you intend to be in the profession, not just for fun, but for bread and butter. But then, for a few years, you have to forget about that, or at least the importance of that should be minimized at least for 1 or 2 years initially. How can you manage to ensure rule of law in the country? Let me give you a small background of the independence movement. From the Congress, Gandhi ji was a lawyer. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was a lawyer. From the Muslim League side, Qaid Azam, of course, was a lawyer. Liaquat Ali Khan was a lawyer. Now, of all these people, the only serious practicing lawyer was Mr. Jinnah. Gandhi was not a practicing lawyer. Jawaharlal was not a practicing lawyer. Liaquat Ali Khan was a Nawabzada, a Nawab. He was not a practicing lawyer. Of course, Motilal Nehru, Sir Motilal Nehru, the father of Jawaharlal, was a very successful lawyer of Allahabad. But by the time of the Pakistan movement, he was dead and gone. So it is basically the lawyers who obtained independence of India. I was recently reading a statement from Mr. Vallabhbhai Patel. He was a very prominent leader of the Congress in those days. The Muslim League had won all the Muslim seats in the central legislature. Responding to that, he said that winning all the Muslim seats will not get you Pakistan. And he said, we will take what we have to by force. These are almost his words. We will take what we have to by force. So on the one hand was the lawyer's approach, that of Mahatma Gandhi, that of Jawaharlal, and on the other was the approach of a layman, somebody who was a true precursor of Narendra Modi. He said, we know what we have to take, and we'll take that by force. So, a lawyer in the middle always has a sensible, a workable, a viable approach, whereas that can't be expected from mere laymen. Now, of course, at the bar you will be busy people, you will be working on your cases, you will hardly get any time. So what really happens is, currently in Pakistan, that it is only, first of all, let us say 500 law graduates join the bar in a particular year. All of them don't start legal practice. About 50% or 40% do. Out of that 40% or 50%, within a period of 2 or 3 years, around 25% fall out. So that leaves about 10 to 15% people. Out of that number also, the really competent lawyers are far and few. Most of them are doing petty jobs, providing securities in bail matters. Sorry to say, working as pimps of dishonest judges. Most of them do that. So it's hardly 2 or 3% of that number which actually seriously. Now, of this whole lot which is practicing, those who are non-serious somehow get attached to political parties. They hardly have any earnings, they hardly have any professional standing, and they get themselves attached with political parties. I once was president of the Karachi Bar. It is a very difficult thing to be president of Karachi Bar, not easy. The election is more difficult than the election of the National Assembly. Very difficult election. Justice Abdullahi Qureshi, who was at one time the Chief Justice of the Sindh High Court, he won that election by one solitary vote. I don't want to tell you about myself, but I will only say this, that in a one-on-one contest, I got double the number of votes than my opponent. Now, when I became the president of Karachi Bar, I had a general secretary, I had a vice president, and they are known people. If I name them, you will know them. I don't want to name them. They had hardly any practice. They were all the time sitting in the corridors, sipping tea and doing gupshup. And when it came to committee meetings, they were the first to be there. And they had an agenda. They wanted things to be done in a particular way. So there and then I realized that this is a different class altogether. And some of them actually made to the High Court also. One good thing that Pervez Musharraf did was that he did not give them the PCO oath. He must have known what these people are. And to some of them, he did not give the PCO oath. So, if you join that lot and get politically affiliated, forget rule of law, forget any positive role in the development of the society, forget any role in establishing a welfare state in Pakistan, because then you will be working for yourself. You will be working for pecuniary gains. You will be working for offices. And that is what is happening in Pakistan. So, in fact, I wonder, we have the administration of the law school here. I think the laws pertaining to lawyers need to be drastically amended. For instance, normally a partyman should not be appointed to the High Court. Likewise, insofar as bar associations are concerned, politically affiliated people should not be permitted to contest the Bar Council or Bar Association elections. Because when that happens, the Supreme Court gets attacked. When that happens, the Islamabad High Court gets attacked. I am not saying that demolition of chambers at the district court in Rawalpindi was a good thing or should have happened. I believe that if they wanted to demolish the chambers, they should have provided an alternative first, because it was their fault on account of which those chambers were established. Their negligence. They should have provided alternative. But that did not mean that you should form a congregation and that congregation should proceed to the Islamabad High Court and take the Chief Justice hostage. That should not happen. That happens only when you are politically affiliated. That happens only because the interests of some opposition political parties lies in creating upheaval, even in the legal fraternity consisting of judges and lawyers. So these are ideas that I wanted to share with you. In any case, if you want to establish rule of law in the country, and if you want to contribute to a welfare state in Pakistan, the most important thing is that you should be dedicated lawyers, honest to yourself, honest to the legal profession, carrying weight everywhere you go, having total credibility, and then will come a stage when political parties will approach you, when the powers that be will approach you, and then in that situation where you have a semblance of what Mr. Jinnah was, if you enter politics then, you will be dictating terms and not being dictated to. As Chief Justice of the Sindh High Court, I have seen the will that the Qaid-e-Azam had written. What a wonderful piece it is. What a wonderful piece it is. To his own daughter, he was a very successful lawyer, you must know that. To his own daughter, he provided 1,000 rupees per month. And the rest of his properties and wealth, he gave to the Aligarh University, which was not even in Pakistan. He gave to the Islamia College in Peshawar, and probably something to Sindh Madrasatul Islam also. That is how he distributed whatever he had. So when you are in the, and then again, he never encouraged students to be directly involved in politics. He considered it to be something which is absolutely detrimental to a student's future. But he relaxed that rule. In 1946, 45, 46, when the Pakistan movement was on, and when elections were taking place for the central and provincial legislatures, he relaxed that rule. I remember having talked to Mr. Ali Ahmad Fazil, who was then a student at the Aligarh University and who later on became Attorney General for Pakistan. He said, we were asked to go about in our areas and work for the Muslim League candidates. So that is the only time when he relaxed the rule. So students, unions, yes, but without political parties affiliations. Lawyers bodies should have the least to do with political parties. Nowadays, it didn't happen in my time. Nowadays, if there is a Pakistan Bar Council election or a Sindh Bar Council election or a Bar Association election, what is it that counts? Whether the PP is supporting you, whether the Noon League is supporting you, whether the PTI is supporting you. And if they somehow get a good candidate, then even a weaker political party is able to get its own nominees there. And what happens? Qazi Faiz Isa's case is classic example of that. Qazi Faiz Isa's case is a classic example of that. I will not go into the merits of that case. First of all, Supreme Court's interference in the Supreme Judicial Council misconduct case of Iftikhar Chaudhry was all right, because there was a direct tussle between Parvez Musharraf and Iftikhar Chaudhry, and there was clear animus against the Chief Justice at that time. That interference was all right, and the judgment of 20th of July 2007 is a correct exposition of law. But what about Qazi Faiz Isa? Undoubtedly, there was some problem. What are your sources of income? What legitimately can be expected to be accumulated by you on the basis of that legitimate source of income? And if your assets or the assets of your family exceed that, you are reputed to be corrupt, you should be excluded. This was the only question before the Supreme Judicial Council. Submit your returns, submit the returns of your family, establish on the other side what incomings of money have been. There will be a comparison. If the comparison establishes an equilibrium, matter ends. If it doesn't, then let us see what happens. The Supreme Court interfered. The Supreme Court was virtually cornered by the bar associations and by the bar councils. And you know what that has come to? That has come to a situation where Qazi Faiz Isa took notice of a matter pertaining to the present government, and referred the case to the Chief Justice. A bench of 5 judges sat, and they said, this kind of case should not be heard by Qazi Faiz Isa. Now, this is something which the judge should have said. This is something which is expected of a judge. I will tell you the example of my father, Justice Wahiduddin Ahmad. There was then a very influential family in Pakistan, the Sehgals. Khalid Sehgal was involved in a murder case. Kiani was the Chief Justice. At that time, West Pakistan was one province. There was no Sindh, there was no Punjab, nothing. And there was a West Pakistan High Court. Kiani was the Chief Justice. Kiani constituted a full bench of Karachi judges because Lahore judges could be influenced by Sehgal. He constituted a full bench of 3 judges to hear the Khalid Sehgal case. Justice Inamullah, the senior most judge, was heading the bench. My father was the next senior judge, and Justice Khamisani was the 3rd judge. At that time, I think either I was in the early days of my practice or I was a student, but I was staying with my father. I came to know that Saeed Sehgal's wife had come to see my father. Actually, that lady was not the real mother of Khalid Sehgal, but was the second wife of Saeed Sehgal, and was also distantly related to us. All these things I came to know later on. I said to myself, she might have come just to see. A couple of days later, I read in the papers that Justice Wahiduddin has recused himself to hear the case. Then I asked him, I said, अब्बा आपने ये केस से अलग क्यों हो गए? He said, बेटा वो मुझे मिलने आ गई थी. तो मैंने कहा मिलने आ गई थी तो क्या हुआ? कहने लगे अगर उनके हक में फैसला हो तो नतीजा ये निकलेगा कि आई हैव बीन इन्फ्लुएंस्ड. उनके खिलाफ फैसला हो तो नतीजा ये निकलेगा कि मैं नाराज़ हो गया. So therefore, either way, I could not have sat in that case. That is the kind of honesty and integrity. I will tell you of another instance, again of my father. I have some of my own, but I will not go into them. My Puppi, her son-in-law, somehow went to the court. My father was the senior judge of the High Court at that time in Karachi, and sat in my father's courtroom. So far, so good. But when my father rose, he sent a chit. If you want to see a judge, then you give a chit of your name or your card to the Havaldar outside. That is taken inside the chambers. The judge is informed, so and so is outside. Would you like to see him or not? The judge decides whether to see the person or not to see him. So, after having sat in his court during the hearing, he sent a chit. My father called him in. वो कहने लगे, मैं मामू यहाँ आया था और बस आपके कोर्ट में बैठा था, मैंने कहा सलाम करूँ. I came to know later on that my father became very angry with my aunt. उनका दामाद था ना. वो कहने लगे कि अव्वल तो ये मेरे कोर्ट में आके बैठे क्यों, और अगर चले इनको सिर्फ देखना ही मकसूद था तो इन्होंने मेरे पास मिलने के लिए चिट क्यों भेजी. You see, that is how people can be influenced. There may be cases which my father could be hearing, and then the concerned litigant may be sitting by his side, or may come to know that this is how he is related. And that is how, even though a judge is not dishonest, can carry a bad name. So this is the kind of stature that judges should have. This is the kind of conduct that the judges should exhibit. And that will happen when? That will happen only when you as lawyers produce the kind of harvest from which the judges are ultimately gleaned. It will happen only then. Appointments in the High Court totally on merits. No consideration whatsoever. When that happens, good judges are appointed. When good judges are appointed, better lawyers are nurtured. And that is how lawyers can contribute to the rule of law. And once having established yourself as competent lawyers, having accumulated substantial assets. Now, when my name was being circulated for appointment in the High Court, I met a High Court judge, just casually. He said, Vaji, तुम्हारा नाम चल रहा है, but don't come right now. पहले अपनी कमर मजबूत करो. That man became ultimately Chief Justice of Pakistan. He said, don't accept right now. पहले अपनी कमर मजबूत करो. And because I did that, when in the year 2000 Parvez Musharraf wanted to impose his PCO oath, I had substantial assets of my own and I could say no. I would rather retire than take your oath. So these are the things. If you do that, then you will be able to reform the society. If you do that, you will carry weight with yourself. What you say would be heard. What you say would be believed. That is what a lawyer should aim at. A lawyer basically has to be a gentleman or a lady. You know, I was hearing a reference, probably on the retirement of some judge, or the Chief Justice of the High Court who had just one son, and the rest of them were daughters. He said selection of a High Court judge is more difficult than the selection of a son-in-law. It is. When I was Chief Justice and I had to send some names, I had to see all the lists of lawyers practicing in Sakhat, all the lists of lawyers practicing in Hyderabad, Ladkana, Karachi, bar councils. I had to discuss with my associate judges, particularly those who had come from the districts, who knew about the district judges. So it was really a very, very difficult job. And you know what happened? There were 7 vacancies. This is something which probably happened only once, and only in respect of one judge. And there my father was the Chief Justice at that time. I had 7 vacancies. It was a court of 28 judges, High Court. I, after all that exercise that I have mentioned to you, selected only 7 names. I had a prior discussion with the Chief Justice of Pakistan also. I prepared a list of 7 judges only. The list goes to the Governor for security purposes, goes to the Chief Justice for further recommendation, then goes to the Law Ministry also. Governor gave me a ring. He said, ये लियाकत जतोई Chief Minister है, ये भी कुछ नाम देना चाहता है. मैंने कहा देने दो, भेज दो. I never saw the governor personally. कभी कभी फ़ोन उसका आ जाता था. I never phoned him. 2 रोज़ के बाद कहता है कि वो लिस्ट तो उसने भेजी नहीं नामों की, उसने हाथ से एक पर्चा भेज दिया, उसमें नाम लिखे. मैंने कहा डजंट मैटर, यू सेंड दैट पर्चा विद योर कवरिंग लेटर, आई विल सी. वो आ गया. वो 10-12 नाम थे, सब बेकार. देयर वाज जस्ट वन नेम जिसको मैंने कंसिडर किया था, बट बिकॉज आई वांटेड टू सेंड ओनली 7 नेम्स. दिस इज अनहर्ड ऑफ व्हाट आई एम टेलिंग यू. Normally for 1 vacancy 3 names are sent. वो एक नाम मुझे अच्छा लगा, मैंने ऐड कर दिया. 7 की बजाय 8 नाम हो गए. In the meantime, I went to the Supreme Court. Now what happens is that when the Chief Justice goes to the Supreme Court or retires or dies, whatever, the names come back to the new Chief Justice. When they came back, the senior most judge became Chief Justice. He had already been consulted. He said, I can't alter this list. I have already been consulted by the outgoing Chief Justice. In the meantime, my vacancy had also occurred. So instead of 7, there were 8 vacancies, and all 8 were appointed. Some of them even went to the Supreme Court. Probably one of them became Chief Justice of Pakistan also. So when merit counts, and understand it, some of them were under the illusion that it was the Chief Justice of Pakistan who had recommended them. Actually, I had done it. I never told them कि मैंने किया था ये. So you see, this is how things work, and this is how they need to work. If you want to establish rule of law in Pakistan, these are matters you have to take account of. First of all, फर्स्ट डिज़र्व देन डिज़ायर। उस चीज़ के पीछे कभी ना जाएं जो आप डिज़र्व नहीं करते, जो आप संभाल नहीं सकते। कई मरतबा आपको कोई ओहदा मिल जाता है एंड यू आर देयर एंड यू आर इन ए फिक्स, यू डोंट नो व्हाट टू डू, तो आपको फिर मेहनत करनी चाहिए। हम जैसे नाअहल लोग अगर हाई कोर्ट चले जाएं तो उन्हें वहाँ जा कर के मेहनत करके उस काबिल बनना चाहिए ताकि वहाँ अपनी प्रेजेंस को जस्टिफाई कर सकें। तो जब इन चीज़ों को फॉलो करेंगे लॉ, अच्छा, वन ग्रेट थिंग विच इज़ हैपनिंग इज़ कि लेडीज़ काफ़ी करके आ रही हैं लीगल प्रोफेशन में, और ख़ास तौर के ऊपर व्हेन दे बिकम जजेस, तो उनके क्योंकि सोशल कॉन्टेक्ट ज़रा कम होते हैं तो दे परफॉर्म क्वाइट वेल। ऑन द कॉन्ट्ररी, ये जो बच्चियां MBBS के लिए आती हैं उससे बहुत नुकसान हो रहा है क्योंकि वो प्रैक्टिस ही नहीं करती, उसके ऊपर जो कौम की मेहनत है वो ज़ाया चली जाती है। व्हेन आई वाज एडवोकेट जनरल, ये केस सिंध हाई कोर्ट में फुल बेंच ने सुना एंड आई सेड कि ये जो ओपन मेरिट है ये नहीं होना चाहिए, क्योंकि ओपन मेरिट पर लड़कियां आ जाएंगी और उनके साथ प्रॉब्लम ये है किसी की शादी हो गई, किसी का कोई और मसला हो गया और प्रैक्टिस नहीं करती। द सिंध हाई कोर्ट अप्रूव दैट व्यू। फुल बेंच ऑफ द सिंध हाई कोर्ट सेट कि हाँ, ओपन मेरिट नहीं होना चाहिए, कोटा सिस्टम होना चाहिए कि फीमेल्स का इतना कोटा होगा, मेल्स का इतना होगा। बट द सुप्रीम कोर्ट अपसेट दैट जजमेंट। अब नतीजे के तौर के ऊपर जो भी मेडिकल कॉलेज में एडमिशन होते हैं मेरिट के ऊपर होते हैं, लड़कियां ज़्यादा मेहनत करती हैं, लड़के कुछ भी काम नहीं करते। ज़्यादातर 60%, 65% लड़कियां ग्रेजुएट कर जाती हैं, उसमें से 45% प्रैक्टिस ही नहीं करती। तो दीज रियलिटीज़ ऑफ लाइफ हैव टू बी सीन। समटाइम्स fundamental rights have to be also molded in a way which is advantageous to the society, which is advantageous to the country. कोई भी हार्ड एंड फास्ट रूल ऐसा नहीं है जो कि ऑल्टरेबल ना हो। at the altar of well-being of the people, at the altar of progress in society, many things have to be done which are not normal things, which may be deviations, which may not be liked. की बात बताऊं, when I was Chief Justice here, तो एक किसी फंक्शन में मैं गया हुआ था, तो मैंने कहा करप्शन जो है इसको रोकने का एक थोड़ा सा तरीका मुझे आता है, और वो ये है कि जो डिसऑनेस्ट गवर्नमेंट ऑफिसर है उसकी बेगम जो है वो कहे कि मुझे ये पैसा नहीं चाहिए, ये हराम का रुकमा मुझे नहीं चाहिए। आई सेड अगर ख़वातीन इस तरीके से करेंगी तो वो हस्बैंड जो कि डिसऑनेस्ट हैं या हु आर ए डिस्क्रेडिट टू द सोसाइटी, वो ये काम करना कम कर देंगे। Dawn wrote an editorial. It said, the Chief Justice has said कि करप्शन औरतों की वजह से होती है। This is the state of your society. यहाँ पर कोई बात समझने को तैयार नहीं है, लेकिन जो लोग के सही काम करने वाले हैं, मर्द हों, औरतें हों, बच्चे हों, they will always prevail.